Welcome to another English Solutions for Business and Life video. Today, we will be looking at the Global Intermediate book, Unit 6, the vocabulary section. We will look at the following topics: the verb to take, and some examples of how to use the verb to take. We will also look at colors and shapes, ways of speaking, and some other words that we looked at during this unit. So let's begin. First, let's look at the verb to take. In the case of exams, you could say take a test, take an exam. It means that you are writing it out, answering that exam or that test. It could be any exam. In the case of control, you could use synonyms for control. Some nouns or words that have to do with controlling something. For example, in this case, we used the word control by itself. Take control of something means that you can be in charge of how it is made. Take responsibility is a similar word or a similar idea as take control. Take responsibility. So we use the verb to take when we talk about it. And lastly, in the case of images, you could say, for example, take a photo, take a picture, take a video, and so on. Some words that are similar to images. It could be moving images, it could be still images. We can use this verb to talk about transport. We can also take food or medicine. We can also use take with activities, exams, control, and images. For example, with transport, you can say you take a taxi or you take the bus. It means that you're using that method of transportation to move about. In the case of food or medicine, you could say, for example, take a pill or take some sugar. It means you're ingesting it. It could be food or it could be medicine, as I already said. When talking about activities, you could say, for example, take a nap, take a shower, take a walk. Some verbs can be used with the verb to take. Sometimes you could use nouns, for example, a nap, a shower, a walk, and turn them into activities with the verb to take, like we did just now. Now let's look at colors and shapes. You probably already know the different colors, or at least some basic colors in English. So now let's look at some words that describe such colors. Dark, light, bright, and pale. Dark and light are two opposite colors. Dark means that it's more towards the black end of the spectrum, like that. That's a dark brown color. And light, it goes more towards, well, there's more light, so that's a light brown color. It can apply to any color, really. It could be, for example, here we have dark green and light green. dark and light. Now, be careful when thinking about the difference between light and bright colors. Light and bright colors. A light color would be one that is more towards a pastel color, such as this. It's a light green color. And if you're comparing it to a bright color, it would be more like this. It's a stronger color. Bright green, light green. They're different. Well, that's the difference between those two. But they're both opposite. You could say they're both opposite to dark colors. Now, pale. Pale also has to do with how much color is emitted from this shade. A pale green color is a green that doesn't have much, color. This could be a pale green color. It's a little bit less colorful than the light green color. But here, since I don't have many choices of color in this program, you can see that they're both pretty much the same. It's just that this one is more mixed with the green color, more pastel-like, the light color, and the pale one doesn't really have much green in it. I hope that's better to understand. You can use all of those words to describe how strong a color is. Now let's look at shapes. If you already know the shapes in English, you might think that this is very basic stuff. But for many people that don't go to like an English school, English basic school, for example, primary school in English, it's really difficult to know the shapes in another language. Because, let's be honest, you don't use shapes that often in your daily life. So, let's look at a couple of words that are shapes. First, the basic shape, the circle. Circle. Square. Square. Triangle. 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 We will not get very technical about the names of the shapes. So let's just call this an oval. Oval. It's like a long circle. Rectangle. Rectangle. Diamond. Diamond. Star. Star. And now some basic 3D shapes. For example, this one is a cube. Cube. This one would be a cylinder. Cylinder. And now let's use our imagination and think of this as a 3D shape. It would be a pyramid. Pyramid. Now let's use these words. What's this? You could say it's a dark red rectangle. Dark red rectangle. First you put the adjective, and then you put the noun after the adjective. You probably already know that. That's a dark red rectangle. What about this? You could say it's a green circle, but if you want to be more precise, you could say it's a pale green circle. Doesn't have much color, you know it's green, so you could say it's a pale green circle. That's how you use these words. That's how you use the words that describe colors and shapes. Now let's look at ways of speaking. You could say that there are different ways of speaking, thinking about the tone of your voice or the strength of your words. Let's look at a couple of them. The first one that we can look at is shouting. You normally shout when you want somebody to hear you. You could be angry and you want people to listen to what you have to say. Shouting. So you speak very loudly. And the opposite of that would be whispering. You speak very quietly, like you don't want people to hear you. You don't want other people to hear you, so you whisper. Let's look at another one. Sighing. Sighing. A sigh, well, when you're relieved or when you're tired, you can make a sighing noise. A sigh, like you take in air and you exhale it. And some people speak like that when they're relieved or when they are disappointed. Another way of speaking could be mumbling. When you mumble, people don't really understand what you're saying. You don't open your mouth. So I'm going to mumble a little bit. Like you cannot understand what somebody else says when they mumble because they're not opening their mouth. They're speaking sometimes to themselves. Now, another one would be groaning. We saw groaning in this unit. And groaning is the sound you make when something hurts or you're in despair. You're annoyed sometimes. For example, when it's just an example, when you wake up a child in the morning and they're like, I don't want to go to school. So they pull their blankets over their heads and they make a noise. It could be a groan. They could be groaning when they speak. That means they're not pleased with what is happening. Or when something hurts, like you have a stomachache, you could speak groaning to show people that, well, you're in pain. So those are different ways of speaking. And as you can see, each of them show a different emotion or different situation depending on the word that is used. Now let's look at some other words. You probably know the word or the verb to ask. When you ask for something, it means that you want somebody else to give it to you. You could ask for a pencil to someone and they will know that you want that pencil, so they give it to you. Now, there are other words that mean similar things as to ask, but they are different levels of strength. The first one we'll look at is demand. When you demand something, you want it done almost immediately. Most of the time, you hear that a boss, somebody with high authority, demands something from their subordinates. That's a demand. They're asking for something, and sometimes it could be without saying please, for example. It could be an order, a command, most of the time it's from someone who has a higher authority or thinks they have a higher authority. Now let's look at the next word. It's beg. You beg for something when you want it really bad, but you don't have the means to have that something. So you ask someone with a higher authority or someone who can get that thing that you need. You beg for it. You say please. Children beg for candy, for example, to their parents. Sometimes they cry. Sometimes they could even scream. It depends. Well, that means to beg, to ask for something desperately. Now let's look at some other words. You know the verb to speak. When two people speak, they exchange words. They are in a conversation, and they exchange ideas. When two people chat, it's a more casual setting. When they chat, they could be on the phone. They could be on social media, and they just talk about not important things. They could be talking about, well, it could be not important, like for work or something like that. They could talk about their day, they could talk about their family. That's chatting. It's an informal setting. Now, to discuss, it could be a more formal setting. You could discuss something in the office, discuss something with your boss. That means that you have arguments and you want people to understand what you're saying, or you want to reach an agreement. That means to discuss. You want to discuss something, you want to reach an agreement over something. And it could be two people, it could be more than two people that discuss something. And well, that means to discuss. And argue. Argue is when two people or more, they fight over something. They talk very strongly. They speak in an angry way because they disagree. That means to argue. And well, that's it for this video. I hope it was better for you to understand the vocabulary in this unit. I'm sorry if the video is a little bit long, but there was quite a lot of vocabulary to look over during this unit. If you have any more questions, don't forget to ask your teacher about them. And well, see you on the next video.